Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. This week, our guest, our Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Nothing matters more in November than Pennsylvania. And author and Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank. Remember, we love taking your questions, so write into politicswarroom@gmail.com or send a tweet to @Politicon for next week's show. We're going to get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. And now, before we get started, get out your calendars. We have exciting news. James and I are taking Politics War Room on tour. Come see us live in Atlanta on October 12th at the Variety Playhouse or Boston's Schubert Theater on November 2nd with a special guest. Get tickets at politicon.com/tour, and we can't wait to see you there. Get text updates about what's next for Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at politicon.com and tell your friends about us. Now remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And please check out the links to our sponsors, Naked Wines, EveryPlate, and Miracle Made. We thank you for supporting these sponsors. It really helps make this podcast happen. Hey, you know, James, unlike the Trump campaign, when we think of Georgia, we think of Atlanta, Coca-Cola, and Jimmy Carter, not the former Soviet bloc. It's a must-win for Democrats. It's a beautiful state with great people. So, James, we're heading down there to make sure it goes blue in November, and we want you out there to be there. In just over 2 weeks, we're taking Politics War Room on the road to Atlanta for a live show October 12th at the Variety Playhouse. Now, how much are you looking forward to getting our listeners fired up for a big win there in the Peach State, James?
I mean, Georgia's a huge state where I was born, state I have a lot of friends in. Atlanta's great city, easy to get to. I'm pumped. I'm fired up. We had a great event at the 92nd Street Y in New York. A really great event. And I expect us to be able to have another really, really great event in Atlanta. I'm very fired up. It's very important. It's very critical. It's probably our most important road show we have because New York and Boston are probably going to go just fine for Democrats. But Georgia, maybe not so much.
Georgia really matters a lot. It's going to be an incredible show and the perfect way to kick off the election's final stretch. Now, all you have to do is go to politicon.com/tour and get your ticket for October 12th at the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta, Georgia. Help us bring the vibes. It's going to put Kamala in the Oval Office by winning the Peach State. Don't wait. They're going fast, and we want to see as many of you there as we can. So head to politicon.com/tour now to get your tickets. The road to the White House starts now. We'll see you in Atlanta on October 12th. Our guest is the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, a formidable figure in the Democratic Party. Governor, it's nice to have you. It's actually a return visit, so it's good to have you back again. Pennsylvania in the political world is what Florida used to be. Everybody says it could determine the outcome. I looked at a dozen polls this month. 4 had Harris up, 2 had Trump up, 6 had it tied. Who has the upper hand right now, 6 weeks out?
Look, Al, it's basically a tied race at this point. And just some context, the last 2 presidential races in Pennsylvania came down to 44,000 votes and 80,000 votes. That's about a percentage point or less. So the way I kind of look at these things with, 40 days or so to go is who would I rather be? And I'd rather be Kamala Harris. Now, you'd expect me to say that. So let me offer some sort of data to back that up. I think she is not only doing a great job of kind of getting the band back together, right, getting the coalition back together, but she's also playing on his side of the field. She's in places like Beaver County. Her campaign's been in rural communities. I was with her in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, a week or 2 ago. Point is, she's playing on their side of the field. And, to kind of put this in football terms, you can get into the red zone in Pennsylvania, but picking up that last yard or 2 it's a bitch. It is hard to do, but I'd rather be us than them right now. I think she's got some momentum, and I think she's playing on his side of the field.
Well, James and I are both Pennsylvania junkies. He ran important campaigns there, and I grew up in your neck of the woods. So let me just go through some of the states. There's 4 big Philadelphia suburbs, your home territory. Once solid Republican, now they're clearly blue. It was Biden's margin in 2020. Can Harris replicate that margin in Montgomery, Chester, Bucks, and Delaware?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's got the momentum to be able to do that. We got a lot more work to do. I think one of the issues that really resonates in the Philadelphia suburbs, which taken alone, if you kind of think of the suburbs as a city, it's bigger than Philadelphia, just to give your viewers and your listeners a sense of how important it is. And I think a big issue is freedom and abortion and a woman's right to just simply make decisions over her own body. And of course, Donald Trump is the one that ripped away that freedom from millions of women here in Pennsylvania and across the country. So I think not only can she build on the coalition that Biden put together last time, but I think she's in a really strong position to really focus on the issues that matter a lot in the burbs.
You mentioned Philadelphia, and the last time there was a really impressive, I think this is right, black turnout there was with Obama, and everybody's tried hard, and Biden got a huge percentage. But, I'm hearing from some Democrats, it's still hard to get a turnout, and Trump is cutting into some of that black vote in the city.
Yeah, I don't know if Trump's really cutting into it, Al. And I don't mean to be argumentative with you. I hear your point on this. I do think it's important that we remember that the map looks really different from 2008. And it looks really different from James's big wins in 92 with Bill Clinton, in the sense that Philly's critically important, don't get me wrong. But, the suburbs weren't in play for James back in 92. They weren't even in play to the degree that they are for Obama in 08. So I think the math around the state has changed quite a bit. And I think you're going to see Kamala Harris do incredibly well in the city and boost turnout in the city. And I think you're also going to see her be able to play in the Philly burbs in a really meaningful way.
Well, you'll forget more than I know, but those 4 suburbs turn out more votes than Pittsburgh and Philadelphia combined.
It's 44% of the overall electorate. And so it's a huge amount when you think of kind of what we would call the Philadelphia media market minus Philadelphia.
Let me ask you one more and then turn it over to James. You mentioned she had been in some of those red counties, those working class areas. I again have been told, I don't know if it's right, Republicans certainly say this, that she's kind of right. She's running behind where Biden was in the Northeast and Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I don't know what the data is to back that up. I mean, we effectively have a tied race at this point. Right. And the last 2 races came down to a point or less. And so, of course, it's going to be close. So, I mean, I'm not sure if if the Republicans' rhetoric is right and she's really behind, well, then the corollary to that is then Trump is behind in other areas as well if you're looking at effectively a tied race. There's 40 days to go. And they got to run through the tape. And like I said before, picking up that last yard or 2 in the red zone is really tough here. And they're going to be competing in all corners of the Commonwealth. Again, you've got in Kamala Harris a candidate who can compete, not just in the suburban and urban areas, but in the rural areas as well, and make some inroads.
James.
So Governor, let's get right to it and use 2020 as our benchmark. Do you think fewer people are about the same will vote in 2024 as voted in 2020 in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, we've seen an increase in registrations. I brought about automatic voter registration in Pennsylvania, and you've seen a real interest in people registering to vote that way. So you got more people who are eligible. Look, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for the former president. There's a lot of enthusiasm for the vice president. And so kind of how that all plays out, obviously, I don't know yet. But I'm seeing in the areas of the state that can generate big turnout that historically have had high percentage of the voters in their area turnout. I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm for Kamala Harris.
So Governor, appropriately, the Philly suburbs and the city of Philadelphia gets a lot of attention, and a lot of people talk about the T, which is let's just call it, for lack of a better term, we know what it is, but it's out of center in northern part of the state. I never think Allegheny gets enough attention.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of votes. Allegheny County is Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas for the uninitiated here. So I want to go north of Allegheny, and while I got you here, I got to put in a pitch for my friend Tom Hagen. He really wants to get Governor Walz to Erie. So whatever you can do, and I'm going to really, to the extent I can push anything, is to get Governor Walz. And I think it'd be a smart place for him to go to Erie. Honestly.
There's no. First off, I love Tom Hagen, and I thought Tim went up to Erie recently, and I think it'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have him back and have the vice president there. I go to Erie all the time. Erie is sort of one of these critically important swing counties. I've been privileged to win in Erie every time I've been on the ballot, and it's an area where you got to compete really, really hard, and it's an area that I think is up for grabs right now. So spending a lot of time there, Democrats are, both the surrogates and the candidates, and I'm going to continue to do everything I can to help there.
You know, things over my career, we were lucky if we thought we'd get 37 in Philadelphia burbs in the 4 counties, we would be on track to winning. Of course, that no longer is the case. Yeah. But the one constant is Erie is, and looks like will continue to be a kind of 50-50 county.
It's a bellwether. Yeah, there's no question. And look, Erie's also had some economic challenges over the last number of years. Now, we've made progress there. We made some critical investments there. And so I think the economic message is really important. And that's where I think you see a stark contrast, right? Kamala Harris talking about cutting child care costs, right? Having a child care tax credit. She's talking about investing in small businesses, putting money into small businesses and cutting taxes. That's the kind of stuff that resonates real well in Erie, unlike, I think, cutting taxes for those who are at the top of the earning bracket. No offense to them, but I think what you really need to see on an economic message is something that speaks to the middle class, strengthens our union jobs and our unions in general, and that's Kamala Harris.
So, Governor, before I turn back to Al, we obviously have a very critical Senate race there with, my dear friend Senator Casey. Do you expect that Senator Casey will run a little bit ahead of Vice President Harris, or you expect it to be about the same? How do you look at the differential there?
Look, we'll see. It's close. I think poll after poll that shows the presidential race effectively, a dead heat, shows Senator Casey with a little bit of a lead. But listen, these races are close, James. You know that. And the guy that Casey's up against is like a bottomless pit of special interest money. And so you've got a whole lot of money being spent against Bob Casey. Bob Casey is an honorable man. He is a dear friend. He votes Pennsylvania values in the United States Senate. He gets stuff done. He's focused like a laser beam on cutting costs for folks. And look, I mean, the guy he's running against, he's just like not from here. He doesn't get it. And I think a lot of Pennsylvanians understand authenticity, and Bob Casey is authentic.
Well, I'm going to turn back to Al and just make the point, as Senator Casey said, I was his first boss when he worked on his dad's campaign. Right.
Well, I agree with everything you said about Senator Casey, Governor, but those private equity and hedge fund guys are going to spend $100 million. That's a real risk for him. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Without question. And I think I said that to James. I mean, look, it's just a bottomless and endless supply of money here going against Bob Casey. And it's all nasty negative ads that they're using to attack him. He's in a serious race. James was asking kind of that differential there. I think there's a little bit of a differential. Bob's run a little bit ahead, but the reality is these races are really, really close. And the Senate race is going to be close. And I hope folks who are watching head on over to bobcasey.com and chip in $2, $3, $4, $5, whatever they can afford. It matters.
You got 3 potentially close House races, a couple Democrats in the Northeast, Cartwright and Wild. And you have a shot, I'm told, at Scott Perry in Harrisburg and York. Do you?
Yeah, without question. I mean, I think there's three races I'm keeping an eye on where I'm campaigning for these members. In fact, I'm doing an event for them this weekend. Matt Cartwright in the northeastern part of the state, sort of think Scranton area, Susan Wild in the Lehigh Valley, and Chris DeLuzio in the southwestern part of our state outside of the Pittsburgh area. We got to hold all three of them. And I think we will. Those folks are working really hard and doing a nice job. I think we got an opportunity to really pick up that seat in the south central part of our state. Think like the Harrisburg area. Janelle Stelson is an awesome candidate. She is doing a hell of a job. I campaigned with her recently. And she's running against a guy who like literally votes against the interests of Pennsylvania all the time. He votes against funding for our roads and bridges, votes against our firefighters even. And of course, he had a hand in January 6th. I mean, he really is someone who has seemingly sworn an oath of loyalty to Donald Trump instead of the American flag and this nation. I mean, Scott Perry, literally after the mob was cleared from the state capitol on January 6th, he went to the well of the House of Representatives, rose to his feet, sought recognition from the chair of the House of Representatives at the time, and proceeded to say that the votes of the good people of Pennsylvania should be thrown out because Donald Trump told him to say that. Remember, these are the same people who voted for him. And yet he went to the floor of the House of Representatives to say, wait, my election counts. I'm coming back here as your congressman. But the election for president was unjust. And I think that speaks to his lack of character. And I think folks see through that. And I think, whether it's the practical things like the I-83 South Bridge, which I've been trying to get funding for a while, a lot of people have. Bob Casey voted for that, right? Joe Biden delivered funding for that. And literally Scott Perry, the biggest, most important infrastructure project in his district for generations, voted against it. So whether it's that practical stuff or whether it's his work to undermine democracy, I think Perry is really vulnerable.
Governor, another contest that you care a lot about are the State House of Representatives. You have a one vote margin. Can you hold that margin or increase it, or what's it look like right now?
Yeah, Al, here's a fun fact for you. I'm the only governor in the entire country with a divided legislature. I'm literally the only one. And so I've got a House that's led by Democrats by one vote and a Senate that's led by Republicans by 3 votes. So it is razor thin. I think the House and the Senate are in play. I think we can expand our majority in the House of Representatives. And I'm campaigning across Pennsylvania to help those state reps out quite a bit.
James?
So, Governor, I know you're busy, but I just want to say that I have faith that Senator Casey is going to win re-election because he is being advised by your dear friend and the Eskimo Saul Shore. And I think Saul is worth a point and a half. Now, don't tell him I said that because go right to his goddamn head.
He's going to watch this. Everybody's going to know it. Yeah.
Everybody's going to know. Well, Governor, I know you're busy. I just could sit here and talk Pennsylvania politics with you all day, but man, you got a lot of critical races. You got a Senate race, a presidential race. You got state legislative races. You got everything in the world going for you. And we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day. And this is the most important person in the most important state in the entire country right now. I think everybody agrees you can't lose Pennsylvania and win the election. So I think that you can't do it. So
this is it. We are, I think, the epicenter of our democracy. But by the way, guys, y'all are students of this. We've been the epicenter of this for 248 years, ever since one of my predecessors, Ben Franklin, walked out after signing the Constitution to the cobbled stone streets of Philadelphia. And a woman walked up to him and said, Mr. Franklin, what do we have, a monarchy or a republic? And what did Franklin say? He said, a republic if you can keep it. And so those 5 words have been our charge here in Pennsylvania for the last 2.5 centuries. We're working hard to keep it. And we're working hard to keep it from the state ledge races to Congress to, of course, the United States Senate and the presidency. And I'm going to be working my tail off to do what my predecessor said to keep our republic.
Governor, I think you got a good shot in all those races, but I tell you what, I don't think you have a good shot at. I don't think the Phillies are going to win. I think between the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Come on.
Oh, I knew that would get you. Huh?
That pissed me off, Al. Why are you saying that?
Ohtani. That's why. Ohtani. One word.
Let me tell you, I think it was about a month ago, we swept the Dodgers in L.A.
Yeah.
The Phils, listen, they've had a little bit of a rough patch in the second half, but they get hot. No one can beat them. Ohtani is incredible. I mean, he's 50-50 guy. Maybe he ends up being a 60-60 guy. We'll see. Not sure if there's enough games left, but he's just an incredible guy. But I think, up and down the lineup in the bullpen, we've got a better team, and I'm feeling really good. It's a red October, baby. Only on the baseball side.
James, I think he cares about that one. I think his passions really came out.
I'm very passionate about my sports.
I tell you, the guy that I think embodies the Philadelphia spirit is Bryce Hoffman. We had him in Washington. That guy plays to win. He plays hard.
Yeah,
I think the world of Bryce. And
he's awesome.
You got another pretty good LSU guy in there, Nola.
Well, you gotta. It's a Nats alumni club. Trey Turner and Schwarber.
Oh, I love Trey Turner.
We gave them all up.
We got Trey. We got Schwarbs. Obviously Harp, and Harp is just. All of them are just. They're like blue collar, tough Philly guys. The community loves them. And they're great. And by the way, Nola is a hell of a pitcher and just a chill guy. I've had the chance to spend a little time with him. You keep sending those great LSU prospects up here, James, okay?
Okay, Governor, we'll do that. And good luck to you. Thank you so much for coming on. This kind of insight can't get anywhere else. Thank you so much, sir. And I know you're a busy man, so let's go back to work. And I'll see you up there, I'm sure, before it's over. Thank you,
Come visit us soon. We'll see you guys later.
Will do. Josh Shapiro, thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor. Find the perfect bottle with the perfect price with Naked Wines. It is really good. And I got to say this. I'm not saying I'm wine. I'm not like a master sommelier or anything close to that. But I am conversant, or maybe a little bit better in conversant in wines, and I tend to drink somewhat better wines. These things are well thought out. They're delicious. They're well priced. It's one of these examples where for a lot less you can get something that matches even more expensive wines. I am very high on this product.
Yeah. Because this podcast is sponsored by Naked Wines. It's a subscription service that directly connects you to the world's finest independent winemakers so you can get award-winning wine delivered straight to your door. Now, James and I both dislike going to the store. I mean, I have one wine store I love here, but I really hate to go out and do that. And you're paralyzed by most of them by the wine options and prices. It's the luck of the draw. Now, we get exactly what we want. We know we're getting quality wines and ditch road trips to the store for good when you go to Naked Wines. Plus, Naked Wines helps you take any meal to the next level with the perfect bottle for any occasion. Thanks to Naked Wines, I just shared an amazing steak dinner paired with a 2021 Matt Parrish Reserve Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, and I rarely have steak. This is great. It was one to remember. And the best part, every bottle is a passion project from an independent winemaker. So you are literally making an independent winemaker's dream come true. Naked Wines believes that great wine is an experience, and they're all about helping you make memories with your friends, family, and community over a shared bottle of wine. So take a moment to turn off the noise of the outside world and uncork a bottle to celebrate the little joys in life. We love that Naked Wines has been around for over 15 years and funds over 90 independent winemakers around the world. And don't forget, you can pause or cancel your subscription at any time. So just because you've got a trip coming up doesn't mean you can't enjoy Naked Wines before or after that much-needed vacation. So join the Naked Wines community and head to nakedwines.com/war room for 6 bottles of wine for just $39.99. That's unbelievable, with shipping included. That's nakedwines.com/war room for 6 bottles of wine for $39.99. You can also find the link in our show notes. Hey, James, we're going to turn to the American election in just a moment, but there is a serious threat of a major war in the Middle East as Israel escalates its attacks. We both have a deep admiration for Israel and the Israelis. You have worked in political campaigns there. But Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu has 3 goals. 1, stay in office. A conflict makes it much easier to keep his right-wing coalition together. If he gets out, he runs the risk of jail. 2, help elect Donald Trump, who'll give him whatever he wants. And 3, I think, to lure Iran into a war and have the United States do what Israel can't do, take out the Iranian nuclear capability. All these are against American interest. Bibi could care less. I think it's a terribly treacherous situation.
I think it's a horrible situation. I think the United States, let's assume for the moment that Harris gets elected. That's a big assumption, but we've got to put, if Trump's elected, do whatever the fuck he wants. Okay. That's what just cracks me up about all of the anti-Biden protests on college campuses. They said, well, actually, his policy, the Democrats' policy is more slightly, if somewhat more than slightly more favorable to your interests than Trump's. And the answer is, yeah, but we can't influence Trump. That's such a stupid premise to start with, as opposed to trying to bolster support for something. They go out and attack the very people who might be in a position to help them. The second point, let me make this very clearly. Israel is, according to the UN, a independent nation, a sovereign nation, has rights of sovereignty. However, they are somewhat of a client state to the United States. How many billions of dollars do you think we've sent over there in aid, in military aid, and everything else? It was the United States and a Democratic administration under Harry Truman that got the UN to recognize the state of Israel. And if Harris wins, I hope she sits down with Bibi and says, partner, I'm going to tell you the way the cow ate the cabbage. And this is what a direction that the United States would like for you to go in. In other words, if you don't go in that direction, you're on your goddamn own. And he'll never do that.
Well, and I hope even before that, if he starts a conflict in the next, 5 or 6 weeks, Joe Biden, stay out of it for now. Don't send him help right now. Let him fight his own battles, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming to the UN. That's his favorite thing to do. But in his mind, because all he cares about, you have to understand it, he's under multiple indictments and is protected by being prime minister. This is not he goes and retires somewhere. This is he leaves and he goes to the penitentiary. And why are U.S. interests being put at risk to save his criminal ass from the penitentiary? I have no idea.
You think he and Donald Trump have some things in common there, James? James, let's turn to the presidential race. It's tight. I think Harris has a slight advantage, but she's been unable to pull away after she devastated him in that debate a couple weeks ago, primarily because he still holds an advantage on the economy. Our friend Jim Fallows the other day, and out there everyone ought to subscribe to his Breaking the News Substack, he pointed out that in important areas, the Harris-Biden economy is much better than Trump. Unemployment is at 4.2%. It's half of what it was 4 years ago, 8.4. Real wages are up, risen faster than prices. Inflation is worse than it was 4 years ago, but it's getting better, as the Federal Reserve pointed out last week. Can Harris turn this economic issue to her advantage, James?
There's a way to do this. And the way and usually that you have perception economy, and most of the people that we know, and I think with some validity, say, look, this economy is a lot better than people think it is. All right, that's frankly not going to work very well, because it takes a while for economic perceptions to change. Trump has given the Harris campaign a great gift. He has on multiple occasions said that you have nothing to lose. That is, whether you have nothing to lose or something to lose is in a very, very different conversation as to whether you think the economy is good or bad.
Nothing to lose if you vote for him, right?
Right. And you vote for all of his crazy proposals that he can't remember what they are, and of which literally, when I want to say I'm as close to be economists would say, these tariffs would destroy the American economy. If you started deporting 11 million people, you would destroy the American economy. And understand that. So what Trump is saying, that you got nothing, you're living in Thanksgiving of 1929, and everything that you have is up in smoke. That is decidedly not true. And they should run a fear campaign on what he would do. And I want to go to these tariffs because it's a very important reason. We see the Iowa poll. We're very big fans of Ann Selzer for good reasons. She's an excellent pollster. And Harris is only down 4 in Iowa. I think I know the reason. Tariffs. Agrarian people do not like tariffs. They have had a horrible experience with them. And as opposed to getting 400 economists, of which we personally know 200 of them, to say that Trump's plans are bad, go to Iowa State and talk to the Department of Agricultural Economics. Go to the Sioux City, Cedar Rapids, Marshalltown Chamber of Commerce. And by the way, that's just not, now you say, well, that's going to help you in Minnesota, which is closer. It should be fine, but it's close. It's going to help you in Wisconsin. It's going to help you in a lot of places.
Help you in North Carolina and Georgia.
Definitely help you in North Carolina and Georgia. A large agrarian community there. And in North Carolina, this is not good. But we have to go somewhere other than Goldman Sachs bankers or Princeton economists. I'm not saying it's great. They're all smart people. But they have got to seize this. You do have a lot to lose. And the tariffs will make you and the whole country poorer, and it'll do it quickly and efficiently. And there's all kinds of evidence to point to that. It goes all the way back to the jackass corn laws in the 19th century Britain, or maybe it was before that. I can't remember when they were, and I think most people would like to forget them. But this does not work. And it's the kind of thing that sounds good if you're a mill worker or auto worker in Ohio, but when you think about it, it's not worth a damn. And that's all he's doing is every cheap-ass, off-the-shelf bullshit thing that he thinks helps him carry Pennsylvania or Michigan, he's going to come out with. And you have got to make him pay, and you've got to say you do have something to lose. And you will lose it so fast under his economic plan, you won't see it. We no longer have to convince people that the economy is good. We only have to convince people that they have something to lose, which is a much easier job. And you don't have a lot of time, and you got to get right to it. I am very, very, I think this is a very good opportunity. I hope they take advantage of it.
That the risks are humongous with Trump. That, as you say, you have a lot to lose, and you can detail that with specificity, tariffs in particular, but other things too.
There's a good piece in the Financial Times weekend, and it goes through it pretty good. Of course, they ran a stupid story with John Paulson on the front page saying the tariffs wouldn't hurt anything. John Paulson gave hundreds of millions of dollars Republican cards. I told Ed Luce, why don't you put me on the fucking front page of the FT? But there was a good piece, to be fair to the FT, there was a really good piece in this weekend edition about the dangers of this. And it takes
about
you
the danger of tariffs.
Yes, and the whole thing, the whole economic plan.
The weekend FT last weekend, right?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, go try to get that. Well, James, I think that is a fascinating idea. That's ought to be her focus. There is not only do you not have anything to lose, you have a lot to lose.
Let me make another point, Albert. We talked about, we both, I think, concurred that the vice presidential rollout was handled very competently, that the convention was handled very competently, that the debate may be even better than very competently. But what is starting to worry me a little bit is they're a very good big events campaign. I don't know how good a day-to-day campaign they are.
Right.
I think they get a big event, and their tendency is to kind of sit on it.
Right.
And everything's going to be the Walsh-Vance debate. But I think they need to be out making their case every day. I don't know if it's the Detroit Economic Club or the Des Moines Chamber of Commerce or the Eau Claire Kiwanis Club, but they've got to get out there and make the case every day and keep their goddamn fist right in his face. And I admire their ability to put together huge events, but let's have some more day-to-day stuff, people.
And aggressively talk about the risk, the dangers that
every day
he poses.
Right.
On the economic issues. There's so goddamn many risks he poses, James, that you have to pick and choose.
A few.
But
that's the hardest thing in politics. To choose to say one thing is to choose to not say something else. So his tax proposals are willy-nilly, stupid, ad hoc, make no sense, but I probably don't want to get into an argument about taxing tips or overtime or whatever crazy thing that he comes up with when he's in any given locale, because he don't give a shit. And remember that. But I would chase his ass around like crazy on tax cuts for the wealthy and tariffs on working families. And tariffs are a huge tax on working families.
All right, Team Harris, I hope you're listening.
Yes, indeed.
We will keep visiting this, James.
Yeah, and Team Politicon, put it up where everybody can see it.
First week of November is going to decide the fate of the nation. I think for all, I speak when we say James and I are excited to turn the page, and we want to spend part of that week with you. That's why we're taking Politics War Room live to Boston, the cradle of liberty, at the Schubert Theater on November 2nd with a very special guest, the famed historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. We're going to rally the troops, hear from Doris, and kick off election week by pre-partying with our listeners with a live show. It's going to be a blast. I mean, James, how much fun are you looking forward to on November the 2nd?
First of all, Boston is one of my all-time favorite cities. I used to live there. Every time I go there, I want to cheat me. I really like this place. And to say the least, Doris might be one of my 5 favorite human beings that ever lived. I mean, how can you be any better than is just an author, a historian, a sports fan, just all around, just really, really entertaining and good person. I think this thing is going to be a blast. And I think anybody that comes to this, it's going to be really, really fun. And I promise you that. I'm so looking forward to this, you can't imagine.
Also, you'll get a chance to buy her great new book there, too, because we want everyone listening, if you're anywhere near Boston, to join us on the tour during the election's final stretch. This is 3 days before the most important election of our lifetime. All you have to do is go to politicon.com/tour and get your ticket for November 2nd at the Schubert Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. Don't wait. They're going fast. We want to see as many of you there as we can. So head to politicon.com/tour now to get your tickets. We'll see you in Boston. Hey, James, our guest is Dana Milbank, Washington Post columnist and author of a timely and fascinating new book on the House of Representatives, Fools on the Hill, Hooligans, Saboteurs, Conspiracy Theorists, and Dunces Who Burned Down the House. Other than that, they're just doing great. Dana, it is, my favorite beat well before you were even in Washington, probably, was Congress. And I've tried to follow it ever since. And the current, there's nothing that compares to it. It's the worst I've ever seen, and you capture it perfectly. The only thing you missed was also, I'd add to that title, Putin apologist.
Yes.
Because they're there too. Wasn't it really doomed from the start? January 2023, when Kevin McCarthy, a man of occasional charm and no principles, gave away the store to win the speakership on the 15th ballot.
It possibly was doomed even before that, when you saw the cast of characters, who were on the ballot. This woman who believed that alien space lizards were running the U.S. government, and this guy who used 250 gallons of paint to paint an enormous Trump banner on his lawn. So they were in trouble to start with. But yeah, I mean, Kevin McCarthy, in order to secure power, essentially gave away whatever clout the speakership had. And it just meant that he was going to be on course, every day, the potential victim of a vote of no confidence. And you just can't govern that way. Nancy Pelosi had a majority of very similar, 4 or 5 seats. She was able to run it quite effectively. These guys have, we've run the numbers. It's getting towards the end of the Congress, so you can predict with some certainty this is going to be the least productive Congress since 1860. Now that's I think even before you and I were covering Congress.
I don't remember that one, but I've read that it's. I just read Bob Mary's book, and it was a bad Congress. But after they dumped McCarthy, and it drives me crazy when some pundits ask then, why didn't the Democrats rescue him? Because they didn't trust him. Most Republicans don't trust him. Kevin McCarthy's word is transactional. So, of course, they weren't going to rescue him. And they turned to a backbencher, right-wing Christian nationalist, Mike Johnson, who was basically served at the mercy of Donald Trump.
Yeah. I think the logic of not supporting him made perfect sense. As one of the Republicans said, as soon as Mike Johnson was named Speaker after the 22-day shutdown of the House while they tried to find one, they said, it's the same clown car with a different driver. So in that sense, it didn't really matter who they replaced Kevin McCarthy with, because nobody was going to be able to govern these guys. And the Democrats did wind up saving Mike Johnson's job, or at least making it possible for him to stay on as speakership. Was that useful or not? Well, it kept the House running. It's not clear that the House is doing much other than passing the Freedom for Gas Stoves and Refrigerator Protection Acts. Those are proud pieces of legislation they've come up with. But so in that sense, it doesn't really matter who is leading these guys. Nobody's leading these guys. I mean, John Boehner tried and failed. Paul Ryan tried and failed. And both of these guys were much stronger leaders than a Kevin McCarthy or a Mike Johnson. So, the Democrats may be called on to prop up Johnson again. But it doesn't really matter who is running the House, because nobody's running the House. It's the lunatics are running the asylum. It's the 40 members of the House Freedom Caucus who are able to stop things at will.
Well, the function of the House in Congress is to legislate. You can enact things, you can repeal things, you can alter things. But Dana, most of these clowns chiefly just want to tear down. They don't come in with a legislative agenda. There's some exceptions, some of the older members, but not very many.
I agree to some extent, but I think if you look at some of the things they've been doing, there is an agenda. Vast majority of these guys, 161 of the House Republicans voted to eliminate the Department of Education.
Well, yeah.
177 of them voted to keep the Confederate officers' names on military bases. They've a majority of them have opposed funds going to Ukraine, and it goes on down the line. So I think they do have an agenda. It's at the moment it's all poison pills, right? Because it's never going to get through the Senate, and it's never going to be signed by this president. But this becomes a whole different ballgame if Republicans take the Senate and keep the House, and somehow Donald Trump is elected, because then this agenda, I mean, we talk about Project 2025. You don't even need to look at the theoretical. You can actually look at what these guys have been trying to do, larding up every appropriations bill with all this anti-LGBTQ stuff, all kinds of great replacement theory, the racist conspiracy theory. That sort of thing, further weakening gun laws. I mean, that agenda is all there. It's just at the moment they can't make any progress with it. Thank goodness.
Well, the other thing they were going to do, they were going to be really tough. I mean, they were going to be the toughest cops, investigators. They're going to make Dirty Harry and Joe Friday look like choir boys. Jim Jordan, the tough guy in shirt sleeves, who, by the way, is accused of covering up the Ohio State athletic sex scandal. James Comer, a good old Kentucky boy who's in so over his head. They tried to impeach Biden, and their chief witnesses, I'm not making this up, am I, Dana? Their chief witnesses, one was tied to Russian intelligence, and the other was tied to Chinese intelligence. You can't make this stuff up. It is.
And there was a third they were hoping to bring in, but there was a problem because she defected to Russia. So that was a bit of a difficulty there. Yeah, I mean, so they went after Hunter Biden's art dealer. Were able to haul him in. And even their own, expert witnesses. Jonathan Turley comes in and pretty much routinely says what the Republicans need him to say. And he said, guys, you really don't have a case here. It was embarrassing. Even Fox News and the rest of the right-wing media was ripping into poor Jamie Comer. And you've seen the great clips of him getting exercise at his hearing, shouting at Jared Moskowitz that he's a Smurf. They didn't produce a whole lot other than replaying at multiple hearings the photographs of Hunter Biden engaging in sex acts, but they were just never able to make a case that Joe Biden did anything of. Forget about impeachable offenses, that he hadn't had any offenses of any kind.
Because there wasn't a case, but that didn't bother them. They didn't really care about that. I've just never seen such gross incompetence. James Carville.
So, Dana, it's fair to say that for this century, you've been at the very pinnacle of American political journalism. You've observed a lot of things. You have a lot of experience. There are two ways that strike me that we can cover current American politics. And it is the classic way that, Kamala Harris says this, Trump says this, Democrats think that, Republicans think that. It's our job to dispassionately tell you what the facts are, and then you, my dear reader, or viewer, or listener, whatever the fuck you are, can make a decision from that. There are people like me who say bullshit. He's as deserving of fair coverage as the Japanese were in 1942.
Yeah.
And this, we're facing a grave threat to the Constitution. And journalism has to abandon its so-called objectiveness and really get after this guy. And yes, the Democrats in Congress, they're a little disorganized, but they had a majority, at Pelosi. These people are out of their goddamn minds, and that should be reported. So you, as a political observer, a journalist of the first rank, if you were an editor, how would you tell your people to cover this?
Well, James, I don't think journalists need to abandon anything. I think we need to go back to what we were supposed to be doing in the first place, and that is we have one loyalty, and that is to the truth. When I started out doing this, there was a bit of, the one side and the other side, because we were dealing in a normal political environment where there were, honest people on both sides having real disagreements, whether it's about American role in the world or taxes. In fact, I often talk with people I covered during the Bush administration. So just remind me what everybody was fighting about back then, because it was all between the 40-yard line. So I have argued that journalists need to be partisan, not for big D Democrats, but for small d Democrats and for democracy. And partisans for the truth. I mean, as my Post colleague Glenn Kessler has amassed, this guy, 33,000 lies told in his 4 years in the White House, and most of them multiple times. We were part of the problem as journalists in 2016. We just weren't equipped for a guy who would lie all the time. And I think journalism bears a lot of responsibility for what happened. I think we've gotten a lot better at that, fact checking in real time, not taking everything at face value. But it's really hard to keep up with it because, of course, the whole point of the book now is it's not just Trump; it's infiltrated the entire party on Capitol Hill. It has very little to do with Trump at this point, but. There's a question of will it do any good in the sense that they have managed to create a whole alternative fact ecosystem with Fox News and Newsmax and Breitbart and New York Post and straight on down the line. So it's not clear that no matter what I write in the Washington Post or what's on CNN or the New York Times is having any effect on MAGA Republicans because they're just totally insulated within their own cocoon, and they're not seeing what we over here in the fact-based community are producing. So
some people look, and let's just say the House Republicans, which you've written out, and people wonder, says, are these people just doing this because it's expedient and it's popular back home in my deep red district, and if I don't do this, somebody's going to come along and do it better than me, so I got to really get out there. All right, that's one option. The other option is these crazy motherfuckers believe this shit. Okay, which one do you think among most of these members of the two understand that you're going to have a little bit of both? Which one do you think is mostly true? They just doing it for a grandstanding, or they actually believe it?
I think the true believers, a proxy for that would be, the House Freedom Caucus, 40 members, give or take. And then there are the cowards who know that what they're doing is wrong, but are afraid of getting primaried. And so, that's essentially the rest of them. There's nobody Ken Buck stands up. He's drummed out of Congress. Mike Gallagher stands up. He's drummed out of Congress. In the end, it probably doesn't matter whether they're true believers or they're cowards because the result is exactly the same thing. And the problem, as you know better than anybody, is look, there are a couple of dozen competitive House seats. So virtually all of these guys, the only danger to them is that they're going to get primaried from the right. Tom Massey, a Republican from Kentucky, said he was trying to figure out, what really made the Republican primary voters tick. Did they like libertarians? What ideology did they like? And he finally said, they're just voting for the craziest son of a bitch in the race. And that's what they're doing. So it's rational for them to be crazy.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is about 40 of them just really believe this.
That would be my guess if we could wake them up in the night and give them truth serum.
I understand, but there are a percent of them that actually believe that this makes sense.
Right, who actually believe in the great replacement theory and all that. Yeah,
I'm gonna ask you to name that. Who of all of them? Who are the top three nuttiest of all of them in the House? Name fucking names.
Oh man, it's hard. That's like asking who's my favorite of my children, James.
I know that, but you're on this show, and some of them really stand out in just everything. And it's not just that their views are crazy; they just don't have any self-awareness of anything.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, the obvious ones are the Matt Gaetzes, the Lauren Boeberts,
Right.
the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, and a lot of that's performative, right?
Right.
But then you've got somebody like a Ralph Norman from South Carolina, and they put him on the Rules Committee, one of the House Freedom Caucus guys, and I mean he's not I want to say he's not the absolute brightest character. He's constantly confusing what a debt default is with what a government shutdown is. But I think he actually believes the sort of things you would see in the press releases and the press conferences from the Freedom Caucus. So they're not necessarily the guys whose names, because the performative ones are the ones we hear the most about, obviously. But I think there's a lot of no-name characters who are indeed true believers.
Well, I'm going to turn over. The reason I asked this question is I'm kind of slightly into Hitlerian scholarship, and there was a great divide. It was like Sir Alan Roper and Sir Alan Bullock. And one of them said, look, he was just a mountebank. He did all of this because he understood that it would make him popular and give him power. And the other side said, no, he really believed this. He was truly and deeply and profoundly an anti-Semite. Mm-hmm. And I forgot if it was Roper or Bullock, but I think maybe apologized and said, no, he really believed it. I've changed my mind. The deeper I get into it, he wasn't doing this for political advantage. Actually, Hitler actually believed the shit he was putting out.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated by that question.
Yes, and of course you can't really know, but I'd say a guy like a Tom Massey probably really believes it. A guy like Tim Burchett probably really believes it. A guy like Chip Roy probably really believes it. They're very consistent. They're not, they're often on the side of those disrupting, but I actually have a little bit more respect for that, since they're actually adhering to an ideology as opposed to an ideology of destruction.
Yeah. Okay, to throw it out, if the ideology is evil, then I don't admire you. It might be your ideology, but I'm sorry. Don't ask me to give you credit.
I wasn't saying I admire them outright. It's kind of relative here.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
Dana, I have contempt for the nutbags like Marjorie Taylor Greene or the really sleazy, despicable types like Matt Gaetz. But in some ways, I think far more insidious are the Elise Stefanik's. These are the people who know better. She was the head of the moderate Wednesday Republican group. She saw the winds blowing, and she became a MAGA. The most loyal MAGA person around, says January 6th really was not that bad. It was just kind of an unruly pep rally. And rather than a violent insurrection, overturn a legitimate election. And yet she's a person that could be a Republican leader. And she's someone who I find more contemptible than the crazies.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. And I put her as sort of the leader of the cowards. Like, she does know better, but she's decided. I mean, come on. She said all the right things about Trump. Heck, Mike Johnson, when he was a state legislator, said that Trump was unfit for office. So, I mean, this is the vast majority of these guys aware that their standard bearer is unfit and doing what is absolutely necessary to keep their jobs. Yeah, I mean, Elise Stefanik, Harvard educated, part of a centrist group when she came to the House, was all about sort of good government, traditional Main Street conservatism. So yeah, I think she's sort of the poster girl, if you will, for the coward crowd who said, this is this is my ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. You wrote an earlier book, and which you postulated, I think correctly, that a lot of this really started with Newt Gingrich. He really, ushered in the era of incivility and meanness. And these guys have just picked it up, and they're even crazier. And some, as you say, are true believers. But it really did begin in many ways with Gingrich, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it did. Looking at the disinformation, looking at treating your adversary as evil, as a traitor, as un-American, and I think that was the time where the changes that were unleashed in the 1960s really, the parties had fundamental. I mean, the changes continued after that, but the parties were fundamentally realigned by that point along racial lines or how people viewed race. What's changed over time is there were still, there was a Newt Gingrich in the Republican Revolution. There was still a Bob Dole. At that time, there was still a critical mass within the Republican Party who could push back against all of these trends. And it just wore down. And that's what I traced through that book, The Destructionist, how that was worn down over time and through the decades. Donald Trump is not necessarily an ideological guy. Yeah, I mean, I think at core he's kind of racist and all that, but it's not an ideology. I mean, I remember covering him when he was thinking of running for the Reform Party ticket back in 1999, and he was pro-choice. He was talking about, Pat Buchanan's just a terrible racist. We can't have that in the race. And he was all about universal health care and all the rest. I don't think he changed the Republican Party so much as he saw where the Republican Party
he saw the wave.
Yeah, I mean, he watched the Tea Party. He saw the huge success he was having, with his birther movement. He saw what House Republicans had done when they tried to have a immigration compromise, and I don't know, it was 2013, give or take. So he saw where things were coming. He said, "I'm going to get out in front of that parade." And so what's happened now is because of his utter command over the party, there really is, there are no grown-ups left. These people have left Congress, or they've been, like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger have essentially been booted from Congress. There's nobody left to push back against this. And that's why, that's the worrying thing is that, even if, God willing, Trump loses again, the problem doesn't go away because there's nothing left of what we remember as a grown-up Republican.
So if Trump loses and the Democrats take the House, which I think they're likely to, it's not going to change anything. They'll be just as crazy as ever.
Or possibly more so, right? I mean, who knows what? Trump, joined by Mike Johnson, if you've heard his recent comments, is basically preparing not to accept the results of the election. So, it's going to get.
He didn't accept them last time. He engaged in a totally frivolous lawsuit saying that Texas could veto Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
And that's why he has the job right now. I mean, think about this. Kevin McCarthy was gone because Trump didn't lift a finger for him, because McCarthy had dared to say Trump might not be the strongest candidate. He said this once on CNBC, I think it was. He backtracked furiously, but Trump wouldn't forgive him for that. And so he let Gates get away with that. Trump torpedoed Tom Emmer's candidacy. He torpedoed Scalise's candidacy. He was kind of into Jim Jordan. That was a rare case when a few of the sort of establishment Republicans said, no, we can't have this guy. So, and then Trump got behind Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson has, sullied the office repeatedly since then, whether it's, protecting him, protecting the people by his selective release of the January 6th footage, by actually going up to Trump's trial in New York and attacking the American justice system, the American system of law and order, as the guy second in line to the presidency, using his office to fundamentally attack our justice system, because that's what Trump required.
James?
So then I'm going to make a statement and have a question. If you want to comment on the statement, you're certainly welcome to. I think the chief reason or the chief driver of where we are today was the election of 2000. I think the press was horrifically unfair to Al Gore, and I think the Democrats and the press were way too acquiescent in Bush v. Gore. Mm-hmm. And I think that told them we can do whatever the fuck we want to So then you end up with Shelby County. Then you end up with Citizens United. Then you end up with all of the things that you see, because honestly, people were not displeased about Bush becoming president. They certainly, the coverage of Gore was patently unfair on his face. And the coverage of Bush v. Gore, well, the Supreme Court slogan, as a country, we come together, and patriotic Democrats should just take this shit. And it would have been totally different if it would have been reversed. That I believe deeply. But that's my statement. They agree or not agree. But I want to move to this. Let's assume that House Republicans, you have Lauren Boebert, House members, I guess. You have Lauren Boebert, and then you have Mitt Romney. Okay, I don't know, Charlie Dent. All right, where would you put Mike Johnson if Lauren Boebert is a 1 and Mitt Romney is a 10? Where do you think Mike Johnson fits in on that continuum?
I think he's a 2. I mean, he's right there next to Boebert. I mean, think about this. Within a week or two of being, finally winning the speakership, what does he do? He goes over to the Museum of the Bible and talks to a group of Christian nationalists, where sharing a stage. I mean, the guy says, "I'm a proud Christian nationalist," and other people who are on the program there have said gay people need to be wearing a tattoo on their forehead or something. I mean, this is pretty out there stuff. This is the guy who has the accountability software program with his son in case one of them watches porn, who has blamed, hurricanes and other natural disasters on human evil. So I don't think he's a little more polished than a Lauren Boebert. He's smarter for sure.
Look, he was the lawyer for the young earthism. Okay, he's really out there.
Exactly.
I know who the guy is. I know all the people that influenced him. I did a video on him that's got, 800,000 views. But I gotta say, he's a little more responsible than I expected him to be. I mean, he's done a couple of things that have modestly. Yeah, I had no expectation. And by the way, I think this guy fervently believes that the Earth is 5,000 years old, and fervently believes that fossil fuels is the greatest thing ever put on the face of the Earth. Yeah. And I don't think he has spent a second trying to reconcile the two. I don't think Mike Johnson questions any of his assumptions.
You're right that he has occasionally made pragmatic decisions after exhausting all other possibilities. Right. Like I think the Ukraine package was an example of that. Yeah, finally he got it. He got it through after 5 months of Ukraine bleeding out on the battlefield. And here's what he's done just now with the spending fight. Of course, he did exactly what Trump required. We're going to put this nonsense election legislation as a poison pill in there. And after that, so finally he did do the right thing and said, all right, fine, we're going to punt. I mean, not that, punting for another 6 weeks is such a huge victory, but it's better than shutting the government down. So, yeah, okay. So he's got a slight pragmatic streak to him. I mean, I kind of prefer the Boeberts of the world because they're sort of, out, fully owning their crazy and, groping at Beetlejuice and going on about public urination in D.C. So, at least they're more entertaining. Although, Mike Johnson does occasionally slip into the truth, like, when he said he spends half his time as Speaker of the House and the other half as a mental health counselor. I thought that was a pretty accurate assessment of his job running that caucus.
Yeah, that's right. I think the guy, I'll give him maybe a kind of prone to give him anything of benefit of the doubt because he's a Louisiana guy, he's an LSU law guy. But I think he has some remote idea of the gravity of the job he has. Mm-hmm. Not great, but remote.
Well, small blessings. We'll hope for any one of those. And I don't disagree with your assessment of the 2000 election, by the way.
Thank you, because I really Albert, is your wife Anna still mad at me? Or
Oh, for the preachy females. Yeah.
Okay,
I think it might still be in her Twitter handle.
Okay. Well, she'll probably, I'll give her that.
Dana, this is a terrific book, Fools in the House. I mean, you got to get it out there, and we only scratched the surface today. But we all, James asked you to name the 3 craziest. I think that's a very unfair question. That's just much too small a number. I mean, you really have to get into,
give me
double,
30 of the craziest. I can help.
I think that guy, that Gosa guy from Arizona, I think he can hang in there with any of them.
That's the one whose whole family comes out against him.
Yeah. He's a white nationalist dentist.
Right.
Oh, my God. Hey, Dana, it's terrific to have you on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. This is terrific. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dana. Save money and eat well with EveryPlate. It's critical, and I think that some of this is by natural stuff, some is not, but there is no doubt that groceries have become more expensive. That's without question. And anything that families can do or people can do to save, that should take advantage of it right away.
We can't believe how expensive it can be to enjoy a decent home-cooked meal nowadays. You can't even go to the grocery store without getting sticker shock. But there's good news. We know an awesome solution that's got your back, and that's EveryPlate. EveryPlate delivers dependable, affordable, and delicious recipes right to your door, with each box containing pre-portioned ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes that are ready in about 30 minutes. And forget that sticker shock. EveryPlate meals start at only $2.99 per meal. It makes sense why they are America's best value meal kit with thousands of great reviews. EveryPlate is all about everyday low prices. Their pre-portioned ingredients mean that you only pay for what you need. Seriously, their meals end up being even more affordable than your fast food go-to. We're on the road as part of our New York City, Atlanta, and Boston tour, and even a quick, not-so-healthy meal at the airport can run you $50. That's almost 20 meals from EveryPlate. Plus, they're home-cooked and made with fresh ingredients. With EveryPlate's rotating menu of 26 weekly recipe options, you can always count on simple recipes you'll love. The garlic rosemary chicken with roasted potatoes, sweet potatoes, and onions is a delicious favorite. Plus, EveryPlate is consistently of great value week after week. Join EveryPlate today and pay only $2.99 per meal, plus get 50% off your first box for all box sizes. Now get this amazing deal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and enter code WARROOM299. That's code WARROOM299 at everyplate.com/podcast. You can find the link in our show notes.
So let me get this straight. You go, I don't know, plenty of places you go, you pay $6 for a Diet Coke. And so what they're doing is they're going to ship you a meal that you're going to pay $3 for. I hadn't paid $3 for anything since the pandemic. And I'm going to get you, somebody's going to get a full meal for $3. That's unbelievable. That's like 1959 price or something. I don't know how they do it, but don't ask, order today.
Hey, now for the outrage of the week. The Trump campaign and Republicans are championing extending all the 2017 Trump tax cuts, claiming that was the intent all along. That's false. They enacted that tax cut, and to get around congressional budget rules, they had to agree to sunset certain provisions, mainly for individuals in 2025. That was the only way to pass this expansive measure. Now they claim the $4 trillion price tag for expending all these tax cuts and adding to the deficit, that's a canard. You see, James, they say these pro-growth tax cuts will pay for themselves. Have you heard that before? The Bush and Trump tax cuts were going to pay for themselves. Somehow we got $10 trillion more in debt and more income inequality. Now, it gets worse. The Republicans charge the Democrats want to increase taxes on poor working stiffs making 75 or 80 grand. That's a lie. What the Democrats, including Kamala Harris, have proposed is to extend those tax cuts for anyone making less than 400 grand. That's the poor stiff making 75 grand, and only increase taxes on the affluent. I saw a Republican poll came out the other day that said 70% of people favor extending the tax cuts. That's because they never pointed out that the tax cuts that the Democrats want to extend are only for the non-rich. If they had asked that one question, they'd have gotten a different result. And Trump will now offer tax cuts for anybody now. This is going to be a huge issue in 2025. And the only way the Republicans can win that debate is to lie. And that's what they're doing, James.
So you're right. You got to understand something about them. They want to be lied to. And let me give you a very specific example. So we're going to have the debate. It was Harris and Trump. So they spent the whole lead up about how Trump was doing, how stupid Harris was, how she was the DEI hire, how this, how that. So then they have the debate. It's evident, even to the Fox listeners, that she did a lot better than Trump. So what are they going to say? She played up a game. She actually turned out to be better than we thought. Trump was probably a little off, or just a kind of excuse making that normal people do. No, they know their people. So they said she had an implant and an earring with people telling her, because they have to justify what they have said before to account for what really happened. My current favorite is they spent all this time about crime. And it was dangerous, and they were shutting us down. And you couldn't take, there was just recently a band was going to march in a Sugar Bowl parade in New Orleans, and they said, it's too dangerous. Of course, the murder rate in New Orleans is down maybe more than in any other city. The crime rate in the United States is experienced in historic drops. Now, there's no chance that they're going to say, well, we got that wrong. Now the new thing is, oh no, the crime statistics are all wrong. 35% of the cities or something like that don't even report. Do you really believe this? Because they can't say that they were wrong. And if there's a fact that says that, they have to come back and say that's not true. And you just have this giant revolving wheel that they can't get off of. And so when they're wrong, they're never wrong. And that's how the whole misinformation. So you say the country doesn't realize that crime is down. Well, because half of them listen to Fox News, and they're told it's all bullshit. And it's been reported. I can't say that the regular media hasn't reported the drops in crime, but I don't think it's been sufficiently accounted for. And by the way, you can feel that it's safer out there. I don't know about how much. And everything takes hold. My favorite is New York is a dangerous place. Actually, New York is one of the safest cities there is. Boston, where we're going, I just read an article, it's the safest big city in America.
Right.
And when you account for everything with a fucking excuse, and then they repeat it with a straight face, it says no wonder we're not any better off than we are.
Yes. Okay.
Beat the heat with miracle sheets. Look, it's everything. And to be comfortable in a bed and to be cool, it makes all the difference in the world. And it's all the difference in the world is to how you sleep. I can't tell you, this product is really good, and it's really particularly good for people like me who live in, subtropical climate, maybe even closer to tropical. And that applies to a lot of people in this country, but you can't do any better than this, I promise you.
Yeah, because sleeping at the right temperature is a critical way to feel rested the next day. Now, if you wake up too hot or too cold, we highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheet. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused thermoregulating fabrics, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter what the weather's like outside. Plus, the silver lining prevents 99.7% of bacteria growth, which means Miracle Sheets require 3 times less laundry because they stay clean and fresh 3 times longer. Your bed will feel freshly made every night. Stop sleeping on bacteria that can clog your pores and cause breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle instead. And trust us, with no more gross odors, life's a whole lot better for your household. The NASA-inspired, temperature-regulating, silver-infused fabrics truly give you maximum comfort in any weather, and they make pillowcases and comforters also. Join us in getting better sleep every night. Not only are Miracle Sheets luxuriously comfortable, they don't have the high price tag of other luxury brands. Miracle Sheets feel nicer than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels, so it's a vacation every time you get into bed. You see, I picture myself on the Italian coast, but it's your call. Go to trymiracle.com/warroom to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo War Room at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product that it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/warroom and use the code WARROOM to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/warroom to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Look for the link in our show notes. Now for our listener questions. Always terrific. God, it's hard to choose these. Pat in Durham, North Carolina, James, says, what do we hear down the Tar Heel State do to take advantage of the hypocrisy and insanity of Mark Robinson, the Republican gubernatorial candidate who called himself once a black Nazi, looked at all kinds of weird porn while claiming that he really was a right-wing Christian nationalist? What do they do, and can it help Kamala in North Carolina, James?
So I'm going to use this as a kind of teaching moment. So for the Democratic Party, we had a problem with President Biden, and we had a problem, frankly, with his age and perception of it. We actually, at the end of the day, did something about it. All right, now, let's take the Mark Robinson problem. This was known all over North Carolina for a long time. The Democrats knew they had this stuff. The Republicans knew they had this stuff. They knew it was coming. They were fully informed as to how loony and crazy he was, yet they did nothing. And I have to tell you, when you hear both sides do it, or they both do it, I got to tell you, if we had a candidate like that in a place that is of critical importance as North Carolina, in an office that is critically important as the governor of North Carolina, I'm sorry, we would have said something. Somebody would have said, no, man, we can't do this shit. And they all knew it. Every Republican in Raleigh knew it. Every Democrat knew it. They all knew this was coming. They all knew this stuff was out there. And I would love for one of them to tell me, why didn't you say something? And now, of course, the Democrats smartly waited till the ballots were printed and everything else, and they're caught. And they deserve to be caught because they knew better the whole time. And that's the way that American politics works. I'm sorry, and I don't think I'm 1% wrong on this.
No, I don't know how much it will help Harris, but it sure can't hurt her.
Can't at all. And then they got all. My favorite is Lindsey Graham. Anytime you can make him look as spineless and gutless and as he is, it's wonderful. And they ought to chase him down on everything. Not because I think he gets any votes, but I find it endlessly entertaining.
He is. The next question comes from Dr. Jeffrey in Central Ohio. He says, I can knock on doors and make calls for Senator Sherrod Brown or advocate for issue 1, which is to end gerrymandering in Ohio. Or I can also devote my energy to Pennsylvania by making calls, writing letters. How should I devote my effort? You're in Ohio, Dr. Jeffrey. Stay in Ohio. Sherrod Brown needs your help. That issue 1, gerrymandering, is one of the things that has cost Ohio. It's one of the reasons the politics is so bad out there. So I would advise you to stay in Ohio, do everything you can. If your cousin is living in central Pennsylvania, he or she can do the same in the Keystone State.
People ask this question all the time. There's actually something that I think people can do that doesn't. I'm not sure how much good it does to go. Everybody wants to go to Pennsylvania, go to North Carolina, knock on doors. I really doubt the efficiency of door knocking, but that's part of, the progressive belief structure that we don't win elections because we don't knock on enough doors. There is something that I think, if done on a really massive scale, is postcard writing. And there's something called Markers for Democracy that's our dear friend Simon Rosenthal sent to me. And you can get names, and they're selected for like low propensity turnout voters, for selected like swing voters. I mean, it's a list that they put together that makes sense. And I think if you or your group of social friends can sit down and crank out 1,000 handwritten postcards from a pre-selected critical list, you're going to do 1,000 times better than just going willy-nilly and knocking on some door somewhere. And I cannot urge people enough, stay home. You don't need to go out. They got plenty of people. They don't even know. If you went to North Carolina, they actually couldn't process you. They couldn't, go through all of the people they have and figure out exactly what you can do. You can go to this Markers for Democracy. You can sign on. They can give you the names, and you can send these handwritten postcards. Okay. I urge everybody to do that.
James, you're going to love this one. Dr. Dan, we got a lot of doctors today, in Orange County, California, wants to share a good tale, wild story, or thoughts of anything to do with the long legacy in Louisiana, from Huey to Uncle Earl.
Well, I think that Earl Long was maybe the best off-the-cuff. Well, A.J. Lieberman said he was the best off-the-cuff humorist since Mark Twain. So that ought to give you some idea when they mention you with Mark Twain. But what Earl had is a penetrating way to say really simple things that stuck and left me the whole time. So obviously he was undone by his lack of enthusiasm for racism, and I'll leave it at that. And there was a guy in Louisiana who's one of the most odious people, maybe in American history. If you took his stealing and his racism and you combine them together, and it was a mandatory 10-point scale, he would be at an easy 20, by the name of Leander Perez. And in the middle of the whole thing, Earl Long said, "What the hell are you going to do now, Leander? The Fed's got the bomb." And he just had that way of skewering people. He made fun of Chet Morrison, who was a mayor in New Orleans, who was a kind of sophisticated guy, and said he wore $400 suits. He said a $400 suit on Uncle Earl would look like socks on a rooster. I mean, you can't get that kind of visual imagery in a very short statement. I think Earl Long is at the very pinnacle of people who could say a lot really funny in a sentence. And that's a real gift. And he had it. And to his credit, he didn't like racism. He certainly was 100% for segregation, but that was not near enough. And I think it ultimately was his physical and political demise.
Well, I had the good fortune to cover Russell Long, Senator Russell Long, for 3 years and spent a lot of time with him, traveled with him. And he didn't really know his daddy very. His daddy was killed when he was, I think, 15 or 16. So 90% of the stories he told, and it's in the family, he was a great storyteller, was about Uncle Earl. He served as Uncle Earl's executive assistant. And there were so many. But one of my favorites, he said, when this legislator who was redistricted from a reasonably sophisticated, upscale district to a very rural, downscale district, came in, asked Uncle Earl for advice, and Uncle Earl said, it's easy. You take that white suit that you have on, that's so good, and those shiny shoes, and you go out and you mess up that suit, and you put dirt all over those shoes, and then you reach in your pocket with that big wad of bills you have, and you spread some joy.
That would be Earl.
And it was just, that was one of the great delights of covering Russell Long, to hear his many Uncle Earl stories. James, our next question is from Wendy in Louisville, who wants to know if the election in November 2024 comes down to the House, would it be the 118th House or the 119th House? Could Kamala win? Wendy, you don't want it to go to the House. It would be the 119th. And you don't vote just as, 435 members. You vote by state. And you vote by state, but how many members you have. And if you're North Carolina, which went slightly, say, for Harris, and they have 10 Republicans and 4 Democrats, they vote Republican. And in all likelihood, there will be more states with a Republican majority than states with a Democratic majority.
Of course, you're correct. And I just love hearing anybody from Louisville. I love Louisville. And if you're ever there, or if you're ever even close to it, by all means, go to the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. It is literally, I thought I knew Ali. I didn't really know. And it's just such a view of American history. You can't believe what all of the things that he encountered, what a kind of visionary, controversial figure he was. And that museum is really, they call it the Muhammad Ali Center, I think. Yeah. It's one of the best places to go in the entire United States.
We got 2 questions from people who were with us at the 92nd Street Y last Thursday, James. Joe and Dobbs Ferry said it was great seeing you, and he says, despite Kamala Harris not running an identity campaign, can you estimate what percentage of the vote she loses because A, she's a woman, and B, she's a black?
Okay, you chime in, because my opinion is not any better than most anybody else's. I think what she loses is not as much as people think. I don't think she was going to. The people who wouldn't vote for someone because they're female, wouldn't vote for somebody because they're black. Look, there's some people that's going to keep away. There's no doubt about that. But I think most of those people have already become Republicans. And I think that you got to balance that with the amount of energy that she generates because she's a woman and because she's black. I don't know, Indian. I hate that fucking identity stuff anyway. But because of her race and her gender, I said her ethnicity and her gender, certainly the people won't vote for it because of that, but there's also an upside to it. And I'd be open to any discussion or any idea how it balances out. But there is some good to come with it, too.
Well, in 1960, most of the post-election analysis says that Jack Kennedy, if anything, may have gained more votes by being Catholic than he lost. So you don't know for sure. But
you don't know.
I think that's perfectly possible this time. Another person who was there last Thursday night, our friend Carrie in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, said she had a great night and loved it. She said a lot of audience questions are around polling because we're all looking for reassurance. So 2 questions. Are any polls more reliable, credible than others? And also, with all the talk of Donald Trump underpolling, is it possible Kamala could be underpolling with any groups? A couple points on that, Carrie. I think a lot of polls are good and some are not so good. If it's a party poll, then I pays less attention to it. But most of the media polls are good, and pollsters like Jim Gerstein and Fred Yang and Whit Ayers, a Republican, and the great Ann Selzer in Iowa. I trust their polls, and I look at all the polls every day, and I basically think they're giving us a pretty good picture. One other thing I would point out on overperforming or underperforming, which we're not sure of, and James pointed this out to me. Nate Cohn in the New York Times today points out that the conventional wisdom that the Democrat had to win by 2 or 3 points at least in order to win the Electoral College may be moot now. And it was true in 2016, but it may not be true today. So look, most polls are right. This is an exceedingly close race, and we'll see how they evolve over the next 6 weeks.
Two macro points that I want to go to this person's point. Macro point number one is the Omaha district thing was huge. Don't kid yourself. It's not at all impossible. It's really possible that she gets 269. That would happen if you carried the traditional.
James, let me
states.
just back up. The Omaha district was where they vote separately from the rest of the state, and they vote Democratic, and the Republicans tried to change it, and they failed.
And it's one electoral vote.
Right.
But it's one electoral vote that you would need if you carried the blue states in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And that gets you to 270, because as you point out, at 269, we lose because that goes to the House.
Right.
That was critical. I read Nate Cohen's piece. I'm not a quant. It seemed reasonable, and B, Nate is not the only guy that thinks that. I think there's a kind of convergence of quants that say that it's no longer 3, it might be 0.7. I don't know what the number is, but it is not as high as we previously thought. Now, let me tell you my view on polling. In every race but 2008, in this century, all right, and by the way, we're a quarter of a century now, both candidates have gone to bed on the night before the election thinking they had a chance to win. In 2000, in 2004, 2012, 2016, even 2020, but Biden had a much bigger lead that dissipated, a lot of it dissipated on election day. So I think people get frustrated because they expect to see, 4.5, 5 point movement, and they don't see it. If you don't see it, you don't fret overall. I think it's going to break one way or another on election day. If you remember, we talked about this. On the Saturday before the Tuesday election in 1980, Carter actually thought he had a good chance to win.
Right.
All right.
Polls were even that Friday.
Yeah, these things, we just forget history. And history is that polling over a long period of time, and now we knew we were going to win in 96. You kind of knew in 92. I don't think anybody was surprised that Bush beat Dukakis in 88. But it's changed in this century. It's really, really changed. And you don't have, other than 08, you don't have these definitive leads where you're pretty sure what's going to happen on election day. I think that's likely to continue. Hopefully you see some pickup here or there, but I still think I'd rather be Harris than Trump, but that's just that's just based on a feeling. But the polling data is not conclusive at all, and I'm not sure it will be.
I agree. Final question from one of our great friends down under, Melody in Sydney, Australia. She says she's curious about the persistence of Donald Trump's election denialism and the lack of pushback it receives. Why isn't every journalist saying you have an entire social media company at your disposal, publish the proof? Why doesn't this get more direct energy? Is it seen as a loser for Democratic voters? Election denialism, James?
Yeah, I've been to Sydney and I loved it. We get so many, apparently we have a substantial listenership in Australia, because at least the ones we get are very active. I don't have any history of being an overly a defender of the press. However, I got to say, they've been pretty good about this. I mean, most of the times when they appear, they'll ask them again, do you deny it? Anytime, I'd say 80% of the time in any good publication, they'll say there's no evidence to support this, or all the evidence is the contrary. I would give, and I don't know what exactly the press is, but at least the press that I read, I'd give them a good grade on pointing out to people that there's no evidence to support this election was anyway stolen. And I kind of stand by that.
Yeah, I would too. Melody, thank you for that question, and keep listening. And everybody, please keep sending those questions in. It pains me not to get to every one of them because they're so good. And we'll get to a number next week that we didn't get to this week. So thanks again. Hey, thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. Remember, get your tickets for the Politics War Room Tour. James and I are bringing the podcast to you live on stage at the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta on October the 12th and Boston's Schubert Theater on November the 2 with the great historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. You can get tickets at politicon.com/tour, and we can't wait to see you there. As always, send your questions for us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you check out the links to our sponsors, Naked Wines, EveryPlate, and Miracle Made in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting them because when you do, it helps make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check out our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content, so go take a look. You also can find other shows you might enjoy on the Politicon YouTube channel or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. Now remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our War Room planning.